Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day's going wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a fun project to share with you today. We're going to be using the PhotoPlay Say It with Stamps Fall Rainbow Stencil. This is a 3-piece stencil set, and then there's a coordinating die set that will cut it out. It creates a real fun rainbow, perfect for a fall, and then there's some elements in here that are great for fall scene building. There's even a sentiment that says Hello Fall. And there's a die that will cut that out. There's an acorn, 2 pumpkins, and a leaf too. So it's great for a scene building, and I thought we'd create a fun card with this one today. Now before we get to stenciling, this is your stencil set. It's a 6x9 stencil, and you can see all the different arches, and it creates, you can mix and match to your heart's content a whole bunch of different styles of rainbows. There's even a layering pumpkin that's so easy to create. These fun little letters over here in the corner, you layer these together with different colors and it creates a sentiment that's very easy. Now to create my fall rainbow, what we're going to start off by doing, instead of stenciling first and then die cutting, I like to do it a little bit different. I like to take the die that I'm going to be using, and I really fell in love with this pattern here. So we're going to find the die that coordinates this. You actually can see there's 3 large rainbow first layers. Those are the layers that coordinate with the dies. So for example, this one goes with this because it creates some branches. This one has a smaller scallop to it, and of course this will go with this scallop. And then you have the larger scallop that goes with this one. So I want to create a rainbow with this. We're going to take this along with the 2 pumpkins and our sentiment die, and before we do our stenciling, I want to die cut this out first with white cardstock. So, and I'm going to do it separately because I don't want to ink blend on my sentiment or my pumpkins. It just makes it easier for me. But I have the hello, or I have this die. You kind of don't know what it says yet, but it'll say Hello Fall. We're going to die cut this out here, and then we're going to die cut out our 2 pumpkins, kind of separating them a bit so we don't stencil over each other. And then when I'm done die cutting these out, I will be right back. Now I went ahead and die cut them out, and then I used some tape. I put them back in their home. It just makes it easier. Well, you can flip it to the back side, add your die behind it, and just lightly tack it down with some tape. I did that here, taped it down with this one, taped it down here with our pumpkins. This just holds it in place while we do our stenciling. I'm going to add a little bit on this side so it doesn't pop out. Now we can go ahead and start building a rainbow, a fall rainbow. Really fun. Now I'm going to be using some inks. I'm going to use a little warm varieties. So we have browns and oranges and yellows, reds, greens. I have a variety of inks here. A whole bunch of different colors that are perfect for fall. And to build our rainbow, it's very easy. What you do is, once they're die cut out, you're going to take your stencil, your first layer, and of course you can mix and match. You're going to add this. You can see your cut line behind your stencil. You are going to line up your scallops, and I think that's going to work out great. If you want to put some low tack adhesive behind your stencil, you could, but I'm really not too worried about it. Now to do this, since it's a small area, I'm going to bring in some finger daubers to do my ink blending. I found some that had my coordinating colors. So we're going to start with our red ink. Once it's lined up, you kind of want to hold it in place, and then you're going to go over each of your little scallops here. Okay, and then you lift up your stencil, and you have layer number 1, and you can see the cut edge here. So it's lined up beautifully. It's very easy to line up this way. I'm going to go ahead and clean off my stencil so I don't get ink anywhere else, and then we're going to continue on with our next layer. Now as we're doing this too, I do want to mention that your stencils are indexed. On the top left corner here, you know which side is facing right side up. because you could stencil this way if you wanted to. But this is stencil, it'll say stencil A, stencil B, and stencil C. You see there? And if you want to make it even easier for you, if you wanted to take a permanent marker, and you can label 1, 2, or 3, or A, B, and C, right below the indexed area. Make sure it's a permanent marker, because this way it doesn't smudge if you put ink over it, but that'll help you too. Not necessarily to tell you what order to go in. That's not what the A, B, or C is. It's more for so you don't put it backwards. You don't want to stencil this way, because then your rainbow will be off. Okay, so that was layer A. For our next layer, the best thing about this is you don't have to go by A, B, or C. You can mix and match, and that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to add this arch just below my red one, and for this one I'm going to use my orange ink. I'm going to hold it down, pick some ink up with my finger dauber, and we're going to go over this. Very easy to do. And then we have our second layer. And this doesn't have to be a rainbow too. You could use this as, you could put one on the opposite end and create a fun frame with it. That's the best thing about this. Now I'm going to clean this off and we're going to go for our next layer. Let's see, for our next layer we're going to go back to our A panel, and then I like this arch here. Or do we want this one? Which arch shall we use? We're going to use the thicker one. And I'm going to layer that just below my orange. And we're going to do a double layer on this next arch. So I want to use my yellow ink. Let's ink this up. So we have yellow. And I mentioned we're going to do a second layer over the yellow. So we have lots of options. We have, I think we're going to do this one. This is a fun one. It has a bunch of speckles. So let's do that. And for this, we're going to go over our yellow arch, and we're going to add some brown ink. Okay, so we have brown over yellow. Let's check it out. Ooh, and it looks fabulous. How fun is this? Okay, now I'm going to clean off this and we're going to do our next layer. I think we're going to do this one that has the leaves on it. It has a real pretty leaf pattern. We're going to add this as our next layer. So we just line it up under our arch, kind of centering it. It's nice because you can see through it. And then we'll add our green. And how fun is this rainbow? I think we're going to call this good. I love the way this looks. Let's clean up our stencil. Now we're going to take our, this actually says Hello Fall. It's actually supposed to go this way. To do that is very easy. You want to go with your stencil A. And you see the H, that's your first letter. And you line it up. You can see, like I said, you can see through your die cut, so you know exactly where to put it. For our first color, we're going to ink up with our red ink. So far so good. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see. Next, I'm going to go kind of out of order, and I'm going to go with my stencil C, and I'm going to line this up. And for this color, let's use orange. I may have enough ink already on my daubers, so I don't have to add any. Wonderful. You see how it comes along really easy? Now I'm going to take my third stencil, and we have our fun Hello Fall sentiment. Now, the nice thing is, we're going to, well, is you can just punch it out, and it's perfectly centered. And how fun is that? And you can do the same thing with your rainbow here. You just remove it from the negative piece. Pumpkins are super easy to do. Let me show you. Stencil B has the oblong or the long pumpkin. You would just line it up over your die cut image. Once you're happy with the placement, be careful you don't want to go over here, but you'll take your ink. I'm going to use my orange here. You just go over your pumpkin. After you do that, you slide it over, and then you can add your second layer, and I'm going to use red for my second layer. And then you would just slide it over. You can add your third layer, which has those little dots, and I'm going to use brown. And then you have right next to those dots, let me zoom in a little more. Let me show you. Right next to those little dots here where we stenciled, you have, let me show you right there. Is that little piece. That little piece is the stem, and it really does add so much to your pumpkin. You would line it up, add a little green to that, and your pumpkin is easy peasy and great for mass producing. How super easy is that? So we're going to do our whiter pumpkin here. Now before we make our card, I do want to create a border. In our stamp set I mentioned that there's some leaves that are layerable, which are really nice, and there's also a cute little tree that is so adorable. So I want to use the tree. Now I want a row of trees, and to get it nice and even, I have a piece of white cardstock. I want that's 5.5 inches long and 1.5 inch tall. Once we have our masking, this is a 1/2 inch strip of masking tape. Once we have that adhered to our panel, this is going to create a border, kind of a guide to where we can stamp our tree. And since we're going to create multiples, I'm going to take the bottom of my tree and line it up against my masking paper. Let's line it up. I think that's great. And then we're going to just use our finger daubers. I might need to re-ink them, but I'm going to go over our trees with first green, and then I'm just going to use my towel, and then I'm going to continue. I'm going to slide it over so it's about 1/8 of an inch gap. Line it up against the bottom of that post-it note. We use our next color, which is red. Wipe off the stencil, bring it over, line it up. We'll add our yellow. Now that is a fun look on its own, but what we're going to do now is remove our masking paper, and we just have the tree tops. Now is the fun part. We have this little piece that creates the tree bottom, and this will line up perfectly with the image here, so you know exactly where to color in your tree trunk. I'm going to lift it so you can see. So we have a little tree. How cute is that? And you don't even have to clean off your stencil for this. Okay, so we have tree trunks. We have a row of trees. How sweet are those? Love that. So we don't need any more inks. We have a cute little row of trees, and it took no time at all. I might have to trim this later on, so we're going to put our inks aside and work on our background. Now that we have all of our inking done, we can create our background, and I want some borders to go along with our fun images, and for that I'm going to be using the number 6 border dies from the Say It with Stamps collection. This is a nice set because it has a whole bunch of different borders, and I'm going to use like the zigzag and also the scallop. So the scallop I'll die cut out with white cardstock, and then I'm using some pattern paper from the Say It with Stamps Fall Plaids paper set. This is the solid colors, and I'm going to use that zigzag border and die cut out a border with that. Now after my borders are die cut, I chose some papers that kind of coordinated with the colors of my fall rainbow, and these are from the same Say It with Stamps Fall Plaids 6x6 paper pad. Now what we're going to do is take our card base, and I'm going to start by, I want to add this to the very bottom of my card here. So we have a nice tree border on the bottom. Now I have this plaid paper. We're going to take this, and I want to add adhesive behind here. And this is going to go just above my tree line. So we have about 1/2 inch showing on the top. And then with this pattern paper, we are going to add our scallop. We're going to add our white one first. I think that's a good spot. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit of adhesive to this, to the back, and then we're going to layer this. Once we trimmed away the excess, I already have adhesive behind my zigzag. We're going to layer this over the rainbow, just so a little bit of that scallop edge is showing here. And then we can trim off the excess here. And then, of course, fall cards I need twine. So I have some natural twine. And I added some twine just so it's just above that border, kind of covering up that seam. Or should we put it, yeah. And then we'll trim the tail. I always like to add twine to my fall cards. Now for our pumpkins and our sentiment, we're going to put some foam squares behind here. Okay. And I think that looks just adorable. How fun is that? Okay, last but not least, I want to add a little bit of highlighting with my white gel pen. And I'm going to go just adding some detail around the A and the O. Just kind of highlighting it a little bit. Now this is probably going to fade out a little bit, but that's okay. And then I'm going to add a little bit of stitch detail to my zigzag border. And then that will finish off my card today. Kind of a playful fall card. I love all the layers, but that will finish my card today. I thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day. We will see you soon. Bye-bye.